to avoid being stuck for hours. We must do more to change this attitude. We must have some cooperation from Union Pacific and all the agencies involved. With that, I'll open for any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Congresswoman. Let's go ahead and start with Jacob Mincho from Houston Public Media.
Thank you, and thank you, Congresswoman, for making the space. I know you've spoken a lot about and held hearings about the train situation here, especially in the East End. But are you considering any kind of legislation to actually force Union Pacific into working with the community and really implementing some safety?
Bill Mincher, thank you for the question. And you might recall that I do have a bill that has been filed and is called the D-Block Act, which really is directed to the blocking of the traffic by the trains. And the bill would require the trains to not block a street for more than 10 minutes and to hold the train companies accountable if they are there for more than 10 minutes and increase their penalties to make sure that there's a little punch to the law. We also have looked at, of course, doing more with regard to the traffic during the school hours. We've been looking at legislation that we'll probably file early next session to regulate the length of the train, the speed of the train, and the frequency of the trains. And let me explain that. The more cars you have on a train, the longer it takes for the train to go by. And then, of course, we have to look at the speed of the train. I know that will be a factor that will be looked at in this instance in terms of whether or not there was sufficient time for the engineer to have put on the brakes and avoided this accident. That'll be up to the investigation. I'm not making any opinions about that. But simply to say that we need to make sure that the trains are going at a safe speed, and then how often they come by is important. So my bill would try to say that we can regulate during the school hours, just like we regulate cars and traffic in and around schools. And I think it's what, 7:15 to 8:30, and then in the afternoons. The same time when we have the school zone hours, we would have like train regulations on the trains to limit how long they can be so they can get through and allow the traffic to come in, whether it's to drop off the kids at school or the kids that are walking, and make sure that they're at low speeds and that there are not so many that it would still cause the same effect of a long train. Again, only during school hours to make sure that parents could drop off the kids, to make sure the kids could get there if they're walking, and to make sure that if anybody else trying to get to the school for any reason can get there. So that bill will be filed. I know my staff has been working on it probably early next year. And I also want to add that we have secured monies for at least two instances of at Commerce Street and York and Sampson. We've secured dollars for overpasses to avoid the trains. And we've got $36.9 million through an FRA grant. It's a rail crossing elimination grant. So we'll continue to look for more opportunities. We've given the subcommittee that works on these issues a list of about 3 or 4 other one of our priorities. We work together with the Freight Rail District, with the Houston Galveston Area Council, and what's on their list. We've checked in with everybody that looks at these issues to see which overpasses should be a priority.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and go with Damali Keith, Fox 26.
Hi, thank you, Congresswoman Garcia. Can you tell me what that $36.9 million grant, if any underpasses or overpasses have been built yet, and where are the locations of the overpasses or underpasses that are in the works?
Well, all of these were just announced this last session. I don't think that any of them are under construction yet. It's doubtful. These things do take time. And just by example, I know I was asked previous to this call, how much, does it a grant for an overpass? Has this particular area ever been on the list? And the answer is yes, it has. There was some of you may recall if you've been around, I have, and during my time as county commissioner, there was a freight rail study done that looked at all the trains and all made an assessment of all the areas that needed overpasses or underpasses. And this particular area was on the list back in 2005. But again, it's a question of timing and funding, and it's not quite gotten funded yet. So this was identified, and the two that we did work on, of course, are Commerce Street. The funding is for Commerce, and another one for York Sampson. They're both in the East End.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and go to Katira Winfrey, KHOU.
Hello, thank you all so much. My question was, and hopefully my view will change. My question was, I spoke to a senator yesterday who talked about just the barriers to enacting change as the railroad is overseen on a federal level. Talk about just the challenges and the barriers to get these things done quickly or efficiently.
Well, I'll just give you an example. I mean, I think you all remember the derailment that was just huge in Palestine, with Ohio. That happened last year. Every single member of that delegation from that state, both in the House and the Senate, and it's almost unheard of to get a bipartisan, bicameral piece of legislation in as quickly as it did after that accident. Well, guess what? Nothing has really happened. Nothing has really happened, even on that. As I said, by example, the great separation at Broadway Street, which has been on the list since 2005. It's a question of funding. These dollars that we just got this last year, it'll probably be another year or so before they see any of those dollars to actually start doing any of the work. That's, I can't answer why it happens that way. I've always thought, especially when I was in local government, because, I've been in city government and county government and state government. I always felt like, why does the federal government run so slow? Now I'm up here, and frankly, sometimes I still find it really incredible at how slowly it does work, particularly with some of these issues. And frankly, the train lobby is just big, well-funded, and very present. So it's really hard sometimes to get things done.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and go with Desi Rios, Univision.
Sí, congresista, si puede dar un mensaje en español, por favor, sobre, la reacción que tuvo cuando se enteró de este accidente y qué es lo que puede hacer para cambiar esta situación, qué puede esperar la comunidad en esa zona que están bien afectados con esto que ha pasado.
Bueno, pues primeramente mi corazón se rompe por el estudiante de 15 años que perdió la vida en este accidente, que a todos modos no había de haber pasado. Quiero quedar claro que esta muerte fue evitable. Durante mucho tiempo yo, junto con muchos en nuestra comunidad, hemos estado peleando, ¿no?, con Union Pacific y el gobierno federal para hacer más, no sé cómo decir los puentes, ¿no? Para no tener que pasar por la carretera. Pero a todos modos, todavía estamos aquí luchando para recibir más fondos, para hacer más para nuestra comunidad, para asegurar a toda la área. Esto fue una tragedia muy, muy, muy fuerte, ¿no? Así es que a toda la familia, los estudiantes y todos sus amigos, los acompañan su sentimiento.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and go with Megan Menchaca from the Houston Chronicle.
Hi there, Congresswoman. I wanted to
Hey.
ask what you've heard about HISD's current protocol for students who need to cross train tracks, as well as how the district staff handled this specific incident, And I'm also curious about how you think the district's protocol should be changed, if at all, going forward.
Well, I'll be frank with you. I've not seen their protocol. I would be hopeful that they would do everything they can to, back in the day when I was in school, it was, the old stop, look and listen. It worked then, and I think it should work now. And I think it would be very surprising if the school district is doing anything but that. I've not heard that they're doing anything differently. But I do know that we've been working on this issue for so many years. And it's always been a concern for us and the community at every town hall that I've ever had, and even the town hall that we did with the freight rail administrator. This was always at the top of the list is, seeing those pictures and video of kids going underneath the tracks, going between the cars, trying to beat the train. We know it's out there, so all of us should be responsible and make sure that we do better education, do better outreach, and make sure that people understand that when the train is coming, you really should stop. Under any circumstances, if a train is coming, you shouldn't try to cross the track and beat the train.
And you haven't heard anything specific about how they handled this incident, correct?
No, there's frankly, you know how it is. There's a lot of rumors out there, and I just want to make sure that we let the public know, especially the community around Milby. I know I've spoken to exchanged communication with Senator Alvarado and State Representative Cristina Morales, the school board member out there, the council member. Everybody's concerned, and I think the time to act is now. The mayor and I have already discussed working together on making sure we can protect these dollars that have been allocated, because we do have a new administration coming, and they've talked about recession in terms of some of the grants. They've talked about empowerment in terms of some of the dollars. So we're going to have to do everything we can that what we've gotten allocated gets protected, and that we're able to use it, and that we can get more, because again, the freight rail study is there. There's multiple lists of overpasses that are needed. There's bridges that we can build to just cross the street, and go up a bridge and across the street at some schools. We're working with the Civic Club and the neighborhood in Denver Harbor at McReynolds Middle School. And I think they're working on design and development. We've approached UP about that already. And we've not gotten a firm answer from them as to how much or what commitment they're going to make to do that. So I have invited the president of Union Pacific to visit me in the district, to visit me so that she can see exactly where it happens, how it happens. And because there's so many out in the East End in my community, and she could not come this Friday, so she's looking at maybe joining me for a tour of our area and discussions about solutions on how we can all work together to better protect our neighborhoods. And we're hopeful that that can happen next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's go to Maya Shea from ABC 13.
Hi, Congresswoman.
Hey.
So we know, like, I guess in October, the city and the county did apply for a grant from the feds that were made available, $1 billion that were made available in July, but they only applied for $2 million. So it's just for a study, to study the feasibility. But realistically, I guess if it doesn't look like the city and county have really applied for like a $30 or $40 million grant to build an under or overpass for this area yet. So in the best case scenario, that's still years down the road. Is that realistic?
Well, it's possible, especially, it's hard to predict what the new administration is going to do. We know that they've talked about making many cuts. They've talked about looking at all the grants. They've talked about all the dollars that are out there. And when you look at some of the things that we've been able to secure, I think we've secured about a little $2.1 to $2.2 billion in total of all the grants that I was able to successfully bring to the district this last session. We're calling everybody on the list to tell them, hey, you better get the money out the door, because we don't know what's going to happen out with this administration coming in. So the mayor and I have talked, we're going to work together and we will do everything we can and that's human as possible for solutions to address this to make sure that it never happens again.
And I think just to follow up on that, you and the state senators and the lawmakers have really talked about this for years. And I think for the average East End resident and family, they just don't understand when every one of their elected officials are supportive of something being done, how year after year, it seems like nothing's been done, right?
Well, it may
It's
seem
that
that, and I think it's important to again underscore that we succeeded in getting two done this session. I mean, I was really frankly very proud of that because it took us the prior 4 years to work on it. And now it'll take probably another 2 to 4 years to build it because you have to remember that for the great separations can vary from $10 million to some 20 to 30 million, depending on where it is, what right of way they have to purchase, what changes they have to make in that area. So it's not easy. It's not something you can do overnight. But I just want to assure the public that we are working on it. We will continue to fight, and I'm not giving up until they pull me out of here in a wheelchair, because this is a high priority for us. And Maya, remember, we have the highest number of complaints of any district in the country. We're number one in complaints of block trains. And that's because we're the corridor that feeds into the product coming back and forth at the port, at all those plants and all those warehouses. So that all that good economy stuff impacts the neighborhoods because you've got more trains coming back and forth. But we need a lot of education. We need a lot of outreach, and we need to make sure that it's not just the kids that know these things, but the parents, the merchants, and everybody. Because on this one, it will take a village to make sure that kids remember that stop, look, and listen. And if you hear the train coming, you should just stop and under no circumstances try to cross. And if you're an adult and you're in the car, you should not be doing the same thing. Because quite frankly, I've seen that happen too with cars, just trying to get through there as quickly as possible. So it's beating the train is something someone should not do.
All right, thank you.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Maya. That's going to be the last question, everybody. So I appreciate your time for joining us on this important issue. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone.